Hey y'all! So this is a video that I have gone back and forth about trying to make several times. I thought about doing this previous years, I thought about doing this prep, and it's really something that is, I try to share as much as I can, and I really want to. I've always been hesitant though to share the exact details. As you guys see, I'm pretty open this year about my prep, about any struggles that I've been going through, the whole process, really trying to take you guys along for the ride. But I never give out my exact numbers or my cardio or things like that. Why? Because I found that a lot of people, that those details will really bog them down, and they'll start to think that they have to do things the way that I'm doing it. And even if you think you're not doing that, a lot of people, we all do comparisons. So sometimes I'll look at other people's stuff and I'm like, oh, look at what they're doing, whatever. But really the reason why I decided to go for it was because, well, one, I have tracked everything extremely diligently this year, which is, total nerd status, but it's really exciting that I have so much data. But I made a post the other day kind of showing the initial to, 20 weeks progress picture and talked about this, maybe I'm gonna do it, maybe I won't. And a few people made the comment that the only people who share their stuff usually are people who, eat a ton and don't really do any cardio and things like that. So that really pushed me to want to do this, because that's not me. I want to kind of show you guys real life, you gotta cut calories, you gotta do cardio, and there's obviously a time and a place for everything. I'm not saying, start out a prep at 1,000 calories and 2 hours of cardio a day. Like, I am not a supporter of that at all. But there is sacrifice in this, and there are, a lot of things that you have to do in order to get stage lean. So I'm gonna go through kind of the process with you guys, my starting weight, my averages for each week, where my cardio is at, where my macros were at, when I made changes, and kind of any traveling that I did. I'll make sure to note, okay, in this week, this is what I did. All right, week one, woo! First week of my diet was May 16th. That seems so long ago since I've been doing this for so long. And if I keep looking over here, it's because my computer is here with my spreadsheet. So I started my journey at 157. I have never weighed that much in my life. I talked extensively about this on social media. And I really just gained a significant amount of weight before I started, like the last few weeks. It was very strange because I really didn't change my eating habits that much. I just actually started doing more training. But regardless, I started at 157. The average for that week of my weight was 155.9. Now, I weigh myself at home every day, barring something very weird, or if I was away, but generally every week I have 7 weights here for this column. Now, when I traveled, I did travel a lot this prep. I brought my scale almost everywhere. And not for any other reason besides we might make a case study out of this, me and Dr. Campbell. So I wanted to be as thorough as possible again. And I started incorporating weighing myself every day for this prep, or again, almost every single day. And it's really, really worked with that kind of scale anxiety, really eliminated that like almost immediately. So again, started at 157, average was 155.9 for the week. My macros, so I wasn't tracking diligently, obviously, beforehand. I'm not somebody who tracks every single thing I do in the off season, just not my style, just never going to be. So if I had to ballpark, I was eating about 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day. Not exaggerating, y'all. I eat a lot. I'm a big eater. But I started on the lower end as far as, 2,500, because again, this is a deficit, right? And I know typically where I need to get in order to get stage lean, no matter what. So I started my refeed days at 2,500. I had 270 carbs, 165 protein, and 85 fat. That's where I started for my 2 consecutive refeeds. Then for my 5 other normal days, is what I call them, I set calories at 1945, which ended up being 175 carbs, 165 protein, and 65 fat. Now, adherence I consider is plus or minus 5 grams. Of course, some days are a little bit over that, some days are a little bit under that. But for the most part, I try to stick within plus or minus 5 while hitting as close to the numbers as possible. Cardio, I started at 2 by 30. So 60 minutes of moderate intensity total. This was the other biggest change we made this year. Ryan suggested that I try moderate first instead of HIIT first. Normally I would do HIIT and then I would add in moderate as needed. This year he said, why don't we try moderate first and then add in HIIT, and it's worked so much better. Put me in better condition to when I wanted to do HIIT, and I was just in better cardiovascular shape. So it just makes a lot more sense doing it this way, again, for me. And as somebody who doesn't do cardio in the off season that much, I really need that base to get started. So again, 60 minutes of moderate intensity cardio week 1. Moving right along to week 2. I'm literally gonna do this for every week, so sorry if this is a super, super long video. It's gonna probably take me like 8 years to upload it on my internet. Average weight was 154.17, so I saw a decrease. Great, nothing huge. I'm not somebody who really either fluctuates that much or really drops like a ton. I have clients who will literally fluctuate pounds in like over a day or two. And there's some people who have like massive weight losses within the first few weeks. It's not really me. I'll kind of go up and down here and there, but usually it's nothing that dramatic. And I was expecting, with these macros, with the amount of cardio I was doing, to have a slower weight loss. I expected that. I wanted that because I knew I was gonna be dieting for a long time. So 154.17 was the average. No changes to macros, and then I added 10 minutes of cardio, so I'm at 70 minutes of HIIT, of moderate per week. That was what we decided to do in the beginning, was add a little bit. You'll see kind of as I go along. So for week 3, I hit 153.42 as my average weight. So again, down again, nothing crazy, but I am down a little bit, about, almost a pound. Macros still the same, and now I've added in 80 minutes of cardio. So 80 minutes of moderate intensity cardio total. And I hadn't traveled. We did go to a Ed Cohn seminar that weekend, so I had to guesstimate a little bit on macros, but it was no big deal. We had like a barbecue that we went to, so really easy, and especially at this point my refeeds were still very high, so I could fit in almost anything. Now for week 4, I dropped to 151.57. That was a pretty significant drop. I started out the week at 153.4, and then I went all the way down to 149.8. So occasionally I will have big drops like that. And sometimes it's just a matter of my body, getting used to things, or just really kind of feeling that deficit. I believe, I'm almost positive this was the week of the ISSN conference. So I was gone for several days, really, really busy. So I'm pretty sure that's why I dropped the weight like that. Estimated food a few times. We had like 2 or 3 meals out, I believe. I brought the rest of my food, but I was a lot more active. Now in the beginning of my prep, what we were doing was we'd have 3 weeks of training, and then we'd have 1 deload week, which I'm calling like a bodybuilding deload week. So it was more focus on bodybuilding stuff and a little bit just a little bit more bodybuilding and a little bit less compound lifting. That's essentially what it was. So when you think of deload traditionally, you think of a full deload, and obviously it's not that because it's contest prep. So we did that with training. Basically it's just like my squat, overhead press, and deadlift were at like 60% for 3 by 5. Everything else was the same. And then we actually would drop cardio down back to where it started. So I went 60, 70, 80, and then I went back to 60 minutes of moderate for week 4. So for week 5, my weight was 151.31 as the average. So no changes there really. And again, the week before I had, kind of some numbers that were normal, and then I had a few really low days, which obviously threw off the average. Hence the extra activity, things like that. So all that can really, really affect you, and you need to take note of that. So if you're doing something for like a conference for 3 days where you're on your feet the whole time and you're sleeping less and you're more active and you drop weight, then it's expected that you could potentially go back up. You may be able to maintain that weight loss, but you might see your weight go up, which is what I saw. So totally normal, definitely what I expected to see. Again, no macro changes now. This is week 5 of the program. Still at the same numbers. Again, 175 carbs, 165 protein, 65 fat for 5 days. And then for 2 days in a row, I would do 270, 165, and 85. Now at this point we've upped cardio again because it's the 5th week. We're not on the deload week anymore. So I'm at 90 total minutes of moderate intensity. The following week, we made changes to macros. So we made our first drop after 5 full weeks of dieting, starting week 6 of the diet, which is pretty impressive for me to actually lose for 4 total weeks and then kind of maintain for the 5th week. That was really, really exciting to kind of see those changes. So we made the drop, and my average here now was 149.46. This is when I went down to Boca to sign with Blackstone. So there were a few times, there was 2 nights where I estimated dinner. I brought the rest of my food, and I also had to bring my scale to the hotel because I wasn't staying at my house, right? So I always take that in consideration too, you know, different floors, different weights, but I'm trying to control all variables, so the same scale, you know. And usually when I go places, this sounds crazy, but I will weigh myself in several different areas on the floor because the floors can be uneven. Usually the best case scenario is right against the wall. It's usually the flattest spot, somewhere in the bathroom. So again, try that out if you are trying to do this and be totally crazy like me. And again, it was just for data purposes. I really knew I wanted to track things very intensely this time around. Now cardio is up to 105 minutes of moderate per week. Week 7, my average was 147.91. So I saw another decrease. That was exciting. No macro changes, same here. And now cardio is at 120 minutes per week of moderate. I was back, actually no, I was home at my parents' house for a few days. So again, same scale, but you know, different place. And I had 1 brunch out that I had to estimate on top of, you know, all that, but I use that on a refeed day. No issues. Again, I'm pretty good at estimating, and as you've probably already noticed, I've had a few trips or a few events that I've had to be part of already this prep, and it's only 7 weeks in, so I got really good at estimating and adapting to my environment. Week 8, I am gone again. This is when I went to New Orleans at the end of the week. So the first half of the week I was home, and then I went to New Orleans for the NSCA conference the second part of the week. My average this week, 146.91, so again, down a little bit. Macros stayed the same. Now, Thursday through Sunday, I was in New Orleans, and if anyone's been in New Orleans, it is really tasty food that is very hard to track. I have a whole vlog on that, actually, on the channel, so make sure to watch that. But essentially, I brought my food for most of the meals during the day. We had a breakfast at the hotel in the beginning of the day, which was really easy to track, and then we would eat dinner out. And it, you know, it was definitely challenging, but we made it work, and it helped because Danielle is prepping too, and we stayed together. Now, I dropped cardio again because we were still doing the dropping every 4th week. I dropped cardio to 90 minutes for this week. Week 9, and my average was 146.85. And so about midweek, I knew that I wasn't really changing weight, so we decided to drop macros. So we dropped it to 145 carbs, 165 protein, that stayed the same, and 57 fat. Now my refeeds stayed the same as far as carbs, so I was still at 270 for the carbs, and I dropped fat to 80 grams. Again, that was midweek, and it was just, actually no, it wasn't midweek, it was after Monday. Silly. But you know, so as you can see, I kind of will go through these periods of dropping, and then if I'm maintaining, I was kind of like, all right, you know, I'm really in tune with that. Let's take it slow, let's see. And I also could feel that I needed to drop food before we went to New Orleans, but there was literally no point in me doing that because it was going to affect my adherence, right? It's already going to be challenging to hit numbers while dieting away somewhere like that. And then to add it, you know, add a decrease, that would just be silly. So I just maintained there, and then when I got back, I knew, okay, let's drop the food. We also brought the cardio back up to 120 because that's where I was previously before that deload week. And then we also, this was when we added in HIIT. The first time that we added it in was at week 9, and again, totally different than I've ever been used to. I had 8 solid weeks of just moderate intensity, and then threw the HIIT in, and I felt so much better. So I would highly recommend to you guys, if you haven't tried that, and if you're like me and you would start out your prep and you'd be pretty out of shape, and HIIT would just take a lot out of you and a lot out of your weightlifting, which I hated. That was like the worst part of it for me. So once I added this in, I felt so much better. I actually felt like I could recover and also train. All right, week 10, my average was 145.74. So again, a drop, but nothing too crazy, but I did see a drop. Macros have stayed the same, and we increased to 10 HIIT intervals on top of the 120 minutes of moderate. Now, week prior, I tweaked my hamstring, and I had tried to do some HIIT, and it just wasn't really working out. I saw my physical therapist, Jamie. She said, let's not do HIIT for another 2 weeks. And I was like, hey, well, I just started HIIT. And so I decided to start doing the ropes, which is not the same thing as what I was doing, which was like the prowler. But again, you gotta work around injuries. So at this point, I've had about a week and a half of the hamstring issue, working around it with training, and then now with the cardio. But there's always ways to work around things, you guys, so just have to get creative. And the ropes are still hard, but it's not like a prowler, but it was still challenging, still HIIT, and I'm still doing all of the moderate intensity. Week 11, this is when me and Paul went to LA and Vegas. For LA was just friends and just connecting with people, and then Vegas was for USA. I went in with intentions of tracking, doing everything, and then I actually decided to take a diet break while I was there. Now, this is something that I'd wanted to do, this prep. Hadn't really planned it, had kind of in my head thought, let me do it in the middle of my prep. But again, not really anything that I, had really strictly planned, and I kind of got there and it just felt right and I just went with it. Now, I'm somebody who's done this for a very long time, several years, and I know my body and I know kind of when to push, when to pull back. And so we trained. Not crazy. We had, not crazy training. We were very active. My Fitbit was like going nuts the whole time. We did a lot of hiking and just cardio on the strip and just different stuff, very, very active. And, we went out to eat, and we had less frequent meals, more calorie dense meals. I had a few drinks and a few desserts. So that was really the only time that I feel like I went very over. If you followed along with any of my snaps while I was there, I keep food pretty much like what very similar when I go out to eat. Like, I like certain things, but this week was definitely more, carbs were probably in check, but fat was a lot higher. I tend to go for fattier options, foods. It's obviously also a lot easier to eat fat when you're out. And I really had no anxiety over this whatsoever. It was really amazing. It was very moderate. I felt completely in control every time I went somewhere. I never felt like I ate and was like, oh my God, I gotta eat everything right now, or I gotta do this. Like, never felt like that. So it was really, really cool. And I had never been able to experience that before. So not a diet break in the sense of what many people who speak of diet breaks talk about. That's a very structured, time where you're just doing your refeed days, very structured. This was not that, but I also, like I said, it worked out excellently. As you will see, I brought my scale on the trip. I actually didn't weigh myself. I was like, you know what? Taking a total mental break this week. We got a lot going on. There's so many opportunities, so many people to meet, so many things to see. We're really active. I'm having fun. I wasn't worried about it at all, and you'll see in the subsequent weeks that I actually responded a lot better after that. So I came back and wasn't really sure what to do with my numbers, because I knew, all right, I had this week, I didn't lose any weight, I probably gained a little bit. So before I left, I was at 145.4. That was a Tuesday when we left really early. The Monday I came back, I was 146.8, and then the next day I was at 145.4. So exactly 1 week later, after being back for one day, I was at the same exact weight. So that was pretty cool. I went right back into my normal weight. Had a few normal days, and the average for that week was 144.8. Now, again, I was not out of town, I was actually just at a hotel in Tampa, but it was for Lane's camp, so we were at a hotel, same scale, different floor, and I came back and wasn't really sure what to do, like I said, with the food, because I knew I wanted to drop, but I didn't really know what to do. So I actually was on the phone with Eric Helms, and he suggested that I drop my fat on my refeed days instead of just dropping my carbs and my fat. Something I've never done, because again, I'm somebody who really likes fats, and I really like having higher fats versus higher carbs. But he knows a lot, obviously, and I figured, let me just try it. and I'll see. So I actually stayed on the same normal day targets. My carbs had been at 145 previously. Dropped my fat 2 grams, so my fat was at 55. And then my refeed day carbs were at 245, and instead of the 75 that they were at previously, I dropped them to 55. So pretty significant drop in fat grams. Obviously, that's a good amount of calories, but I didn't have to drop anything else. And then what I also did at this point, which is now starting week 12, was something I did for my clients a few times this year that worked really well, and started doing an 8 and 2 cycle. So essentially, I wanted to keep the 2 refeed days, right? Whereas before, previously, if calories needed to get lower, I would just drop to 1 refeed day, but I wanted to keep the double in there. So I started doing 8 normal days to 2 refeed days. So instead of having, 5 low days, I'd have 8 low days and then the 2 refeed days. So a little bit different, keeping the carbs the same, dropping the fat, and then also doing this 8 and 2 split. And I went right back to 120 minutes of moderate and 12 HIIT sessions. I'm still doing ropes at this point because of the leg, but it was working out, and that's kind of what I've been doing for a few weeks. So now I'm out of town again this week. I was taking care of my grandma. She had a knee replacement surgery, so I was at her house, and again, my scale, but different floor, and my average that week was 142.5. So the new drop, the new change kind of in the calories distribution really helped. And I kept cardio the same, 120 minutes of moderate, 12 HIIT. And then this week I did 1 rope session and then 1 prowler session because I was feeling better, and it had been that 2 weeks that Jamie had told me to do. I did the prowler and it didn't hurt, so I was like, I'm gonna roll with it. And calories and macros are all the same this week, and I saw a drop, so that was pretty cool. I didn't have to drop my carbs, from the previous week, and I was really responding again. And I think part of it could have been that diet break, whether it was mental, metabolic, combination, whatever it was, kind of jump-started things again, which is exactly why I would suggest taking one. Right, so for this week, the average was 141.64. I waited a few days, so I went home, back to my parents' house, then I went to Boca, then I went back to Tampa, and then we made a surprise trip to South Carolina, which I actually forgot my scale, and I was like, no! So yeah, as you guys can tell, I've traveled an extensive amount this prep. So anytime someone tells me that they can't follow their goals and go on a trip, I'm like, no, you can. But anyways, so I forgot my scale. So for that week, the average was only 4 days, but regardless. And I kept my numbers the same. All the way through Sunday. I actually dropped them on Sunday. So not really a full week, it was just 1 day on that. But I basically got to do like 2 or 3 cycles of that 10-day split, and it was really cool to finally see that I was responding, kept cardio the same. And again, it sucks that I can't eat more fat on my refeed days just because I love fats, but it was working, and I got to keep calories up and carbs up. So, there's certain things that I'm all about adherence. I'm all about eating what you like, but at the end of the day, if something's gonna enhance my physique goals, and that's what I'm trying to do, is get on stage with the best physique possible, I'm gonna do it and sacrifice through it. And basically it's just changing food sources and eating more things that are just carbs versus carbs and fats. So for the beginning of this week, we actually went from South Carolina to North Carolina on the coast, and we were there for 2 days. Again, still didn't have my scale. Came back for a few days home, back in Tampa, and then I actually went to Naples for the Naples Pro-Am down at the Ritz. So I was gone again, but brought my scale that time. So, had, different floor, but same scale, and it was pretty on track with things. So this week, I had changed everything on Sunday. So this week was a full week on the new numbers, which were 130 carbs, 165 protein, 50 fat, and then for my refeed, 230 carbs, 165 protein, and 50 fat. So again, basically my refeeds are just 100 extra carbs at this point. No changes to cardio still. So we're at week 15, doing really good, doing the prowler, doing my moderate intensity, same type of cardio, and, you know, still making progress. Like, I'm still consistently dropping, and nothing too drastic, but it was really, really cool to see, you know, really consistent drops with all the traveling, with all the things that I was introducing and just being really busy. And yeah, so it was really exciting. If you can't tell, I'm happy because last year I ran into a lot of struggles with not responding. So this year, finally, it was like, yes, what I'm putting in is what I'm getting out. And I really owe that all to just my long 8+ month off season of just eating all the foods. Week 16, my weight for the average was 138.94. So again, a little bit of a drop. And this time I was home the whole week. So it was my normal scale, my everything. Cardio moderate is still at 120 minutes, and then I added in some HIIT intervals, so now I'm at 16 HIIT intervals. Macros are still the same, still rocking and rolling at the 130 carbs, 50 fat, and then 230 carbs, 50 fat for every 9th and 10th day. Week 17, we made changes on a Saturday, so kind of threw it off a little bit as far as like the, you know, the spreadsheet and everything, OCD problems, but my weight was 137.97 as the average. And then after my 2 refeeds, we made the drops. So that was I had refeeds on Friday and Saturday, so then after Saturday is when I made the changes, and I dropped to 120 carbs and 45 fat, and then 220 carbs and 45 fat. Also dropped protein to 155 because for a little bit of time I was having struggles kind of hitting it, and then my body weight had drastically reduced from I'm down 20 pounds at this point. So from the beginning, so, you know, I figured I could handle a decrease in the protein. I'm kicking myself now in the ass because I literally am almost going over protein every day because I'm like, I want to eat it now and it's just fitting in better. So I don't know, just being silly. I shouldn't have done that, but regardless, you know, protein, if I'm a little bit over on that, I'm a little bit more lax than say, oh, I'm just gonna go over on fat. Definitely not. Cardio, 120 minutes of moderate. And then we decided to change to 20 HIIT intervals on Saturday. So made those changes, kind of had to add in a little bit of, you know, some extra intervals towards the end of the week. But overall, it was another really good week, saw significant changes at 17 weeks. Week 18, this is Olympia week. Now, Olympia week is always, you know, a lot. It is, you know, tiring and exciting, and there's a lot going on. So I front loaded a little bit of my cardio the previous week. Like basically normally I'll give myself, you know, Monday through Sunday to do all the cardio, but I basically finished the cardio Monday through Friday the week before, and then I started Saturday and Sunday for the following week, just because I didn't want to get there and then, you know, be really stressed about that, because I knew I'd be working Friday and Saturday at the expo and whatnot. We actually increased moderate cardio to 180 minutes, and the HIIT was still at 20 intervals. So I knew I had, you know, 180 minutes is something that you kind of have to plan for. It's not like I can just, you know, roll with that. It's not like 60 minutes or something. So I knew I wanted to get a jump start on it that way in case I did extra or something. Great, but if I didn't get it in, then I didn't have to worry about it. My weight significantly dropped to 136.03, and about this weight, usually it's at 135 for me, so this year it's at 136. It's one, very challenging to get under, but two, I noticed a very significant physique difference. It's those few pounds where people go, oh my God, you look, you know, great, or oh my God, when's your show? Oh my God, you look ready, you know. So typically that's kind of when I start to see that. So that happened Olympia week, which was great, because, you know, you're walking around a sports bra and whatnot. Macros were still the same. We had a kitchen, and then I ate out about, you know, 1 to 2 meals while we were there. So make sure to, you know, go through my Instagram. I made posts about it while I was there, the different foods, and then, you know, kind of showing you guys, okay, what I ate, what I ordered, you know, and then also what I ate. So I made a big drop at the Olympia, and then the following week I made a little bit, but pretty much the same, 135.68. I think the one day it kind of threw me off because I went up like 1.5 pounds, which again is not very normal for me, but I did. Of course, that was the day I got like body comp testing done. But we kept macros the same, cardio was the same. And again, when you have an event, say like the Olympia, where there's a lot of energy expended, and there's a lot of different variables, you're out of your element, I'll find that people will either gain or lose. And then typically, maintaining that can be kind of difficult. So sometimes if you lose a lot when you have a lot of hyperactivity, you might not keep losing. Or if you do lose a ton, maybe you'll kind of go up a little bit. Or you might actually just go up from like the stress and the change. So it's really, really different. So for me, I think I went down and it kind of aided in some fat loss. And then I pretty much was maintaining, the week after that. And then week 20 came around and we hadn't made any changes yet. And then I just started dropping, which was great. But at this point, I had committed to the Phoenix Europa, which is what I'm doing in 11 days, 10 days, something like that. 10 or 11 days out. So I made changes on Monday, dropped carbs to 105, fat to 40, and then refeed days to 205 and fats to 40. HIIT is still the same at 20 intervals, and moderate is still the same at 20 intervals. And the average weight, did I already say that? I don't know, I'll say it again. 132.65, so made a pretty significant drop. There was a few days where I just started dropping. It was crazy. And I think, my body is tapping into that kind of getting leaner phase. It feels pretty terrible, but I'm getting there, and that's just part of the process, and it's not something that is ever going to get easier for me or really anyone. Now all this week, my glute hip area was really bothering me. So then finally on Sunday, I went to my therapist, and I have a muscle strain in my TFL and then part of my glute med. Excellent. So that really kind of hindered my intensity and my volume I could do and can do, because in order to make that better, you really need to take time off. I can't take time off. So I have to do what doesn't bother me and limit the range of motions that do bother me, and just kind of reduce the volume. So something else to work around. Sucks. It really got me down, honestly, but then I just kind of had to take myself out of that little pity party and go, I can still train hard, I can still hit my numbers and do the best that I can. So here we are at week 21. I have not made any changes to my numbers, not made changes to cardio. My waist is the smallest it's been. It's at 24.5 inches, which is small for me. I know it's not a lot small for a lot of people, but for me it is. My weight this morning was 131.4. So that's the lowest I've been all prep. Pretty exciting. And that's what I'm doing. I'm eating, I have to eat about this much to get lean enough. And I'm gonna have to probably make some more drops in order to get lean enough. So for me, the 1,200 calories at the end of a prep is the reality. I'm doing 180 minutes of moderate and 20 intervals of HIIT. That's my reality. That's not so much. Like there's some people who do way more than that, and there's other people who do way less. Some people talk, I got lean on 2,000 calories. That's not me. I know that about the 1,400 calorie range is really where the magic starts to happen, for me at least. And every single prep, I've had to kind of get around here in order to get that last little bit off. The full 21 weeks of dieting, I have gone from 175 grams of carbs and 55 grams of fat on my normal days. No, not 55. Was it 55? Hold on. Scrolling. No, 175 and 65 fat, and 270 carbs and 85 fat. And now I have gone down to 105 carbs, 40 fat, 205 carbs, and 40 fat every 9th and 10th day. I've also gone from 60 minutes of moderate intensity cardio to start to 180 minutes and 20 intervals of HIIT. My weight has gone from 157 to this morning 131.4. My goal is to be 130 on stage. Pretty significant weight loss. I normally wouldn't recommend losing this much weight, but I'll have done that over 22 weeks. And it was, as you saw, it was pretty slow. It was pretty consistent. If I maintained weight or my weight went up one day, I didn't go, oh my God, I gotta drop food, because I knew that I was gonna give myself at least this much time. I actually had planned to do my first show, not the Europa, but the week after, but we moved it up because Paul's doing a camp that week. So in my head, I'd already committed to having a really long prep, and it just made it so much better. It took the stress away, and you know, again, I had those consistent drops, consistent changes, and if something, you know, fluctuated or went up or whatever, you know, I wasn't too quick to change, which I think is really, really important. I hope all this data didn't overwhelm you guys and really helped. I've been really trying to share my journey as far as, you know, visual things, or as far as food and traveling and whatnot, on my Instagram and my Snapchat. So hopefully it's been helpful. I know I've gotten some really good feedback already, and now here is like for all the data and the number nerds, you guys have it all. In case if you listen to this whole thing, bless your heart. Hopefully it got you through some cardio and gives you some insight on, you know, how real people have to prep. You know, not everyone starts out stage lean. Not everyone gets to eat 2,000 calories and get lean. There's no need to do more than you need to do just for the sake of doing it. But just know that every process is different. Everybody's body is different, and, you know when to push it, know when to pull back, and most importantly, give you guys enough time. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.